Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 53 of the Social Screenwriters Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Compton, and today on the show we have a very special guest. His name is Daniel Hanna. RJ was the winner of the 2021 Nicholl Fellowship screenwriting competition and well, one of five winners, I believe it was, and also the writer director of such films as Succubus, starring Ron Perlman and Rosanna Arquette, and Hard Miles, starring Golden Globe winner Matthew Modine and Oscar nominee Sean Astin. Very cool cast, very cool ideas. I just watched the trailer for Hard Miles and it looks really good. I want to watch it. Yeah, cool to have him on the show. You know, a little backstory that I talk about in the episode, but 2021 was the year that I went deep in the Nicholl and made it to the semifinals. A script of mine made it to the top 50, and that was enough to do some things for me. And I got a manager out of it, and things started moving for me, slowly but surely moving. And I always knew of Daniel Hanna because he was one of the winners that year, and I was like, holy shit. Followed him on Instagram and been following him ever since. And now we're 5 years out from that, which is nuts. And it was cool to finally get to meet him and get to talk to him on the pod. He's written and directed a few features. Really nice guy too. Really cool insights on writing. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. That's about it there. I've had way too much coffee today, and I noticed during the recording that this cup perfectly matches this shirt, right? I mean, that's exact. And also, this is a cool shirt that everyone should see. It says Laurie Metcalf is the best actor in the world. And she is. Laurie Metcalf. Yeah, I've had a crazy week, crazy couple weeks here with writing. I have finished 2 feature film scripts in the year 2026. One of them I started last year, so I'd been working on it for a while, but I finished that in February. And then over 6 weeks, I just wrote another feature. I am on a generational run of motivation right now, and I am trying not to let it die. This is not a normal pace for me. Probably want to put that out there for writers listening who are rolling their eyes, oh, he's one of those guys. He writes 14 scripts a year. Not at all. This is just a rare moment for me where I'm doing pretty good and I'm trying to keep it up. And I am currently rewriting the first one I finished. I'm going to get that done hopefully by the end of this week. And then I'm going to start rewriting the next one. And then after that, I have a new feature that I'm going to start. My goal setting out for this year was to write 3 features and 1 pilot for my reps. And I'm making some progress. So it's almost the end of March and I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at. And I'm feeling pretty good just about writing and everything. I went away for a few years and just was making short films from 2023, 2024, and 25, honestly. I wasn't really working on feature writing, and I am falling in love with writing again. And it's so nice. I love this part of the process, just getting to be kind of alone and, entering that world of whatever script I'm working on. It's just been really cool, and I'm really excited about it. So I hope you guys are out there chasing your writing goals, doing your thing. It's hard, man. It's hard to keep up momentum. So anytime you can get it, ride that wave as long as you possibly can. And you have to consciously put in effort, in my opinion, to keep riding that wave. So when it's happening, do whatever you have to do to keep it going and stay motivated and try not to take days off. Even if you're only putting in 45 minutes of writing a day, do it. Bully yourself, make yourself do it. That's where I'm at and what I'm doing. And it feels good. That's about it, guys. If you like the podcast, please like the video, leave a comment, say something smart that Daniel said, say something dumb that I said. Subscribe to the channel, please. And if you want to share this, please share on socials. I would love that. Our social media is at Social Writer Pod. Follow us there. I am at Andy Compton _. Please follow me on Instagram. Subscribe to me on YouTube, whatever. Not only do I release the podcast on my YouTube, but I also have short films I've done, a music video. I have a new music video coming out soon that I think we're going to put on the artist page, but I'm going to make a short little video just letting you guys know it dropped and, sharing a link to it. So I have some things coming on the horizon that I'm excited about. Like I said, I'm just writing a lot too and trying to get my first feature made. So we're chipping away at it, and hopefully one day we'll look back on these old podcast episodes when I'm rambling for the first 5 minutes and say, hey, I remember when he was working on that movie and now it's playing at an AMC near me. That'd be pretty cool. That's the goal. That's about it for me, though, guys. I really appreciate anyone who listens to the podcast and is supporting still. Follow your dreams, be good, drink water. I'm also drinking water, but I have just had so much coffee today. I feel bad. I feel scared. I think this is too much. I'm a little nervous, but we're gonna get through it, baby. And that's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this episode with RJ Daniel Hanna.
The Social Screenwriters Podcast. The Social Screenwriters Podcast. The Social Screenwriters Podcast. Where Andy talks to people he met on the internet.
Daniel Hanna, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, of course. Really stoked to have you because for listeners who don't know, in 2021, you won the Academy Nicholl competition. And that was one that I went deep in and I got to semifinals. And it did a lot for me just getting to the semis. And but it's so cool because, you know, I obviously paid attention to who won and I saw your name and I've kind of subtly been following you since. And it's really cool to get you on here now, like what, 5 years later. Like this is
Yeah.
I didn't plan it this way, but this is kind of the perfect way to do it, you know. And I see that you've been busy, and I am going to do something that is always cringes out my guest, and I like to cringe out my guest right off the bat. But I'm going to read your bio just so listeners can get a feel for who you are, and then we'll hop in from there. But maybe it was growing up in Arkansas as a Canadian or the summers in rural Ireland with his grandparents, but Daniel has always been drawn to out-of-place characters, strange environments, and the unique rhythms of how people talk. He just completed post on his horror film Succubus, starring Ron Perlman and Rosanna Arquette, to be released in 2024. Crossing over 500 screens in the US and beginning its run in the UK, it is his feature Hard Miles, starring Golden Globe winner Matthew Modine and Oscar nominee Sean Astin, now SAG-AFTRA president, which has won multiple awards and screened at prestigious festivals, including Chicago International, Heartland Film Festival, and Cinequest. Prior to that, Daniel directed the true story feature Miss Virginia, starring three-time Emmy winner Uzo Aduba, Oscar nominee Aunjanue Ellis, and Vanessa Williams. The film was listed as a New York Times and USA Today must-see fall movie, won the Audience Award at the Naples Film Festival, and received a limited theatrical release, cable premiere on BET, and streaming deal with Netflix. As a writer, Daniel is a winner of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences Nicholl Fellowship in Screenwriting, as well as the Slamdance Script Pipeline and Screencraft Writing Awards. He also explores storytelling as an editor with 10 features under his belt, including horror film What Lies Below, starring Mina Suvari, which hit #1 on Netflix, and Supercell, starring Alec Baldwin, Anne Heche, and Skeet Ulrich, which hit #1 on Hulu. Daniel hopes to continue telling cinematic, character-driven stories long past the time any sane person would have retired. He lives on the east side of LA with his excessively vocal cat, Dottie. Cool, man. It's quite a resume. And yeah, I'm just so excited to hop into this. You know, right off the bat, these features that you've directed, did those all came after the Nicholl win?
So I directed Miss Virginia before. I didn't write that script. I was sort of only the director, involved in pre-production for a bit before, just kind of working with the writer, just in the sense of reading drafts and just sort of like, here's what I think. And then she would run with everything.
Yeah.
And so it kind of what had happened in a way with the Nicholl. I mean, first of all, on the Nicholl, I think the hardest thing is getting to quarterfinals. And then honestly, after that, it's sort of like, everything's luck in a way, but after that, it's just kind of winnowing down, right? What are people's personal tastes? What resonates most? So the script that I had but one had made semis like 5 years before too, and just didn't get through. It made the top 50, but didn't break through. But on the feature, on the first feature, I did that. It came out in 2019, right before 2020, and then for a lot of, same as with a lot of people, COVID was kind of a reset. and started then working on these other features during COVID while we were kind of all locked down. So that was sort of that process, is going from, okay, I've directed a movie, but it didn't get me all the way where it needed to get me, in part because everything, just sort of got put on hold. And then trying to explore more, like as a writer, kind of taking that time during COVID to go back to old scripts, go back to that script that had made the top 50 in the Nicholl but hadn't won, and kind of actually, like we were talking about before we started, actually take the time to do the things you never have time to do, which is actually sit down and read something and then think about it and kind of go, well, why did I change this in the first place? Why did I change the ending? Why did I change that? And just think about what is the best version of this and the way to go with it. So that's sort of a very roundabout way of talking about kind of how I was coming at these projects.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, what horrible timing to have your directorial debut drop. I'm sure you have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends who were all impacted in a few seriously negative ways from COVID, beyond it just being, a catastrophe. But professionally, projects releasing, projects that were on the verge of maybe getting picked up, and then the whole deal died. Just a terrible time. So yeah, I'm sorry that happened to you. That sucks, but you rebounded, and that's what matters.
Yep. Yeah. I had also, my manager and I at the time had parted ways around then too. Just kind of we just weren't the best fit for each other, but still on good terms. But I thought, well, it won't be that. I've got so much more going for me now than I did, when I got this first manager. And then that ended up being pretty hard to actually get a manager during that whole thing. To say the least.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, before we get too far to the middle of your career, I want to run it all the way back and ask you, Daniel. I tried to do Daniel Hanna, and I said Dana. Yeah. Sorry. I want to ask you, Daniel, how did you get into screenwriting?
Sure. I always was interested in writing. I actually wrote a novel when I was a kid. It's something I really enjoyed, the process of just getting up every day and working a little bit every day and chipping away at it. And so I feel like that's sort of the first hurdle is, can you complete something? And I think a lot of people are worried they can't complete something, so they're afraid to start. Yep. And in terms of screenwriting, just somewhere around high school, like a lot of people at the time, I started getting into, Scorsese's movies and Tarantino movies and all that kind of like high school 16-year-old kind of guy movies. And that was what sort of pivoted me away from maybe I would write a book someday to maybe I should think about doing movies one day. It still felt far away. I grew up in Arkansas. You're kind of like right in the middle between New York and LA. There's nothing really around there that fits that. But that was kind of that spark was, watching the DVD behind the scenes and hearing people talk about how they got started and thinking, well, before they started, they hadn't done anything either. And that was kind of inspiring.
Yeah, I love that. I'm in Missouri, so totally hear you. I'm still in Missouri. You have since moved to LA, correct?
Yes. What part of Missouri?
St. Louis, right outside St. Louis. But yeah, I'm like 25 minutes from the city. So it's easy to say St. Louis.
Totally.
But yeah, man. So I totally hear you. Like I had, no connections, no nothing. And, speaking of your Nicholl win too, I wonder if you felt this way, but I was starting to submit to contests and stuff around 2019. So right before the pandemic again, but it was 2018-19. But I was, being in Missouri and having no connections to the industry at all, I kind of knew that contests could be really big for me. And that's maybe something I should be aiming for. I will say that with an asterisk that, they're a crapshoot. They're a total crapshoot. Talent can get you there, but also really great scripts get passed over in contests all the time. I've also had a script that went to the top 50 of the Nicholl, got completely shit on and didn't even make quarterfinals in a much, much, much lesser contest. So take it with a grain of salt. But if you are in middle America, or even if you're in New York or California, but you have zero connections to the industry, contests can be a thing. I don't even know how the landscape is anymore since like Coverfly folded And I think with them, We Screenplay and maybe even Screencraft. I don't know who all folded, but I know those companies were under the same umbrella. And yeah, I don't know. It's just I'm not sure what's going on in the contest landscape, but as writers who were very outside of Hollywood, it was big for me.
Yeah, I thought it was. I mean, even living in LA, you still have to show. You have to be able to show in some way that there's a lot of people trying to do this, right? So you have to show in some way, like, it's okay, you can read my script because it's at least been vetted by this or that, and it's not going to be this terrible experience. It's going to be, like a real script. And I think just that's the first hurdle is getting to there.
Yeah.
And you can get managers and stuff from them sometimes. I don't know what it's like now. But it's just some way to at least kind of see. Granted, you have to take it all, like you said, the grain of salt. Similar for me, my script that won the Nicholl never did well in any other contest. It only did well in the Nicholl. And then my other ones that would do well in the other contests didn't do well in the Nicholl. They're looking for different things.
Yes.
And so, I think it's just a way to kind of get a sense, is this going to work in the market? Like, is this surprising people? Is it making people take notice and say, actually, this is interesting? And maybe it's just good. I mean, I wrote a lot of screenplays before. I've just written a lot of screenplays. And so it definitely took time to get better at it and feel like, okay, I feel confident now for myself. Is this idea interesting enough, to me after spending all this time doing it, and just getting to that place is a great place to be. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're on the contest subject, let's just stay on it. So tell me, like, what was that experience like winning the Nicholl? I mean, how did you find out? Did you celebrate? And what all comes with it? Because I know that some great perks come with winning.
Yeah, it was, the way we initially found out, first we found out we were finalists, and we had to, we had to get on a Zoom, and we had to kind of be on a Zoom with all of the panel. Basically, I had thought I would need to maybe defend my script a little bit, or, talk about my career, talk about where I've been coming from, or a bio, or sort of, I thought I would need to make some sort of pitch or something to get through to the next stage. So I was very, nervous about that. And then they just said, we want to tell you you're a finalist. And I don't know why it was surprising. I don't know what else they would have really been telling us, because I'd been through the process before. I've been a semifinalist, and you don't hear anything until you hear you didn't get it, Yeah. And so I just figured there's something I have to overcome. And so then when we were finalists, really that was where a lot of things did start too. The manager who I have now, who I really love, he, every year he looks at the finalists and just looks at the log lines and decides, he'll read one every year, just which one sounds interesting to him or sounds like something that he would like to pursue. And so he had reached out to me, and obviously like a lot of people do reach out, which is great. You're getting people actually interested in reading your stuff and talking to you.
Totally. So do you have a guesstimate of how many reps reached out to you? Well, I guess you already had a manager or no?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Because I left my manager, and then exactly. Yeah. I would say there probably ends up being, it might not seem like that many. Maybe it's like 20, 25. Everyone had different numbers. Some of them are production companies that just want to read, they want to read everything. Some of them are managers, but they're all good. They're all good management companies and teams. So it probably ends up being by the end of the process, starting with the finalists into like maybe a week or two after the fellowship is announced, or that happens.
I was able to get about 8 meetings with managers, and of of those, one of them rep me and now is still my manager.
Great.
And I'll say too, for people listening too, just again, how much like, you placed in this contest, that's cool, but maybe not enough to get a manager. None of those other managers were all that interested. And then my now manager was like, the Nicholl thing is cool, but like really what I like is that you're telling these like Midwestern stories about
Mhm.
kind of ordinary people in the Midwest. He's like, I'm from Alabama, and I really think that these smaller stories that don't get told that much should be amplified. So it was actually a very specific reason that I got repped,
Totally.
even on top of, the accolade. The accolade wasn't the only reason.
Yeah, I think it depends on what it still has to resonate with people, like whoever the managers are, and it's just one way to cut through the noise and the clutter. Like when I was a semifinals with the same script, I got maybe one. I didn't really get it just didn't seem, I guess it wasn't a script that at the time people felt like this is something that I would want to pursue, and so that's the other side of it.
Good writing, but maybe
Right,
not
exactly.
marketable. Yeah,
That
sure.
that actually is the feedback we got from a producer, a very smart producer recently on that same script that my manager was sending out, was basically all the things he liked about it, and then said, "But you're crazy. No one makes movies like this anymore." Basically like
Yeah.
a good drama. But
A tale as old as time, and I think
Mhm.
scripts like that, it's only a matter of time. It's someday that script will have its day in the sun. I really believe it. If it's good writing, trends come and go. People
Totally.
maybe get a little more adventurous every now and again and take chances. But yeah, I think if the writing's good, don't lose all faith. If you get a bunch of no's, it could just be not the time right now.
Yeah. It's just the one right person. That's kind of what you're looking for. The one right producer or actor or whoever.
Yeah, people say that, it only takes one yes, and that is very true. And honestly, too, sometimes you get that one yes. Now everybody's saying yes,
Mm-hmm.
as if they
Exactly.
knew it all along. And it's just so, yeah, you got to crack that one yes sometimes. But okay, so yeah, you get a manager coming out of that. And then what are the interactions like with the people who run the Nicholl, following that? Because I know there's you get like prize money, maybe you get some mentorship along the way. Like what was it like in the following months?
Yeah. So it was a really good experience. Well, first of all, you have a whole, it's almost a week. In this case, we're doing it via Zoom because it was still kind of at the end of COVID, and people and everything was kind of moving that way, or kind of
Yep.
stayed that way. But it was like a week almost of meetings with past winners who had maybe scripts produced or had gone into, maybe they went into TV or whatever. And they kind of took us through, each had their own kind of process that they were taking us through in terms of this is what maybe you should know about navigating the industry, because everyone's also coming from different places in the industry too. Some people are kind of writing from completely outside of Hollywood, and other people are working so within it. So that was a really good part of the process. And I got to have a conversation with Destin Daniel Cretton, who is a director I've always really liked, and his script, who that won the Nicholl Short Term 12, was a script that I loved, and a movie that I loved. And
Yeah, I'm a
they were kind
huge
of,
fan.
yeah,
I
he's
actually had
great.
the DP Brett Pollock on the podcast.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, and that
it's
was
a
a
great
big get
movie.
for me because I'm a huge short
Yeah,
term fan, like a kind of
yeah.
a ridiculous short term fan. So that's so cool, man.
Yeah, that was a really cool, great thing, and everyone sort of had that experience with, they had a past winner that they did a kind of a conversation with, and they read our script, and we talked about the script, we talked about writing, kind of, it was sort of something like this.
Yeah, yeah,
And so that was a really neat thing. And then there is a really good community within the Nicholl, fellows, and they'll have lunches and meetups. And then there's the award ceremony every year where people, come out, and it's just it's just good to be able to reconnect and talk with, a group of writers who you really respect and are at all different ages. People remain, they remain committed to it over the years. And so it's great to see people that are farther along in their careers still coming back and hanging out and catching up. And it's been a really great process. And what you do
yep.
is you're supposed to write a script within it doesn't have to be within a year. I think it's within 3 years, in order to get the money. And that's part of what it is being a fellowship. So you can take some time to write. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool. I mean, it's obviously so impactful, especially when a guy like Dustin goes through there. And comes back. I mean, the new Spider-Man trailer just got, I think, the fastest to 1 billion views in history or something on YouTube. Just really crazy. But yeah, I've been following his career, and that's so cool, man. And then yeah, I mean, it's people. I'm sure those annual get-togethers too. It's like, every now and then someone that you're buddies with did this huge project this year. And
Sure.
you get to catch up, and just really exciting times. But okay, cool. So just wanted to touch on the Nicholl, because I know that a lot of people who listen to this podcast are very interested in the Nicholl and what it could potentially do for them. And being a winner, it's just I mean, you reached the pinnacle, you got there, and I just think a lot of people are going to get a lot from that. So then I want to get into you, like, as a writer, and just get to know more about how you write and what you write. So this is a word that all writers hate, brand, but I'm going to ask it. Daniel, how would you describe your brand as a writer?
Yeah, it's tough because I've really been writing in almost every genre, because a lot of times I'm writing for a producer or something that maybe I would direct, but it's a project coming from someone else that then I would take on. So, but when it comes to brand, what I think is consistent across everything, including like the Nicholl Fellow winner, is trying to really immerse myself in a world. Very interested in a specific world, like getting into like how do these things work? That kind of goes back to those like Scorsese movies that got me going, like Casino, and those exploration of how do things work behind the scenes. Yeah. And so what I'm always trying to do is have just a very character specific point of view of exploring that world. And I write a lot more for myself in like thriller, and if I'm writing my own things, but I've done lots of true stories, just straight dramas, westerns. So I think not really genre. It's that trying to like immerse myself in research a little bit and how things really work and really were, and then trying to have a very personal relationship, like a character of a very personal relationship, and the audience through them into that world, that unusual space, and trying to find humor in everything, because there's humor in life, keeping that tone balanced. But I think there's always a place for levity and a place for just surprise, which is a lot of what humor is. So that's what I try and bring, I think, to everything as a brand. You're going to get a little of that, I think, if I'm working on it.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Do you happen to know a writer named Kevin Sheridan?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I had him on the podcast one time. He's a friend, but he does a lot of his description of his work is so similar to you. That's why I just wondered if you guys were buddies. But no, good dude. Maybe you'll meet him someday along the way.
Hope so.
But yeah. So on that topic too, one thing I wanted to ask about, because I'm always just trying to get information to writers who are very new to this, and it's because it's all so confusing. You and I both know I'm still learning all the time. But with these assignments that have come your way, your manager brings you these projects. Is there, when you were setting out to have this career, was that, because I know you're a writer director as well, and I'm the same. I'm chasing the same dream, and I think as a writer director, you can really get in love with the idea of specs. Spec features, your own original thing. And then taking someone else's vision can be a bit challenging at times to put your flavor into it while still maintaining the original vision of the project for the producer. How do you navigate that? When you get someone else's piece, do you put a lot of onus in putting yourself into it in the script, not yourself into a character, but just saying like, your flavor, the way that you like to tell a story. Or do you adapt a little more, adapt to their style and their vision? How do you balance that?
That's a good question, because it is always really tricky. And I have been in the more recent projects I've been doing as like assignment work or work for people that I work with regularly. I'm definitely trying to put a lot of myself into the script. I'm trying to figure out the way it's worked the last few times is sometimes there's a script that like there's already a draft of a script, but a producer we know that this is not what the movie is. We know that this is like the story. We like these elements of it, but it's not this. We need to explore a lot more. We need to make it For instance, I did one that was a Cold War spy movie, which was very fun to work on. And that was kind of the assignment was, okay, we get that this is a Cold War spy movie, but there's not really much spy stuff happening. So, and it's based on a true story. We need to find that and bring that out, And so at that point, it's a process of seeing what like interests me in the research and going through and thinking, oh, wow, this could be this or that could be that, something old CIA documents that have been, made public, reading through, I can send some of those and read through them and kind of realizing, wait, I see how this could tie in. Also, this actually is very interesting, and just trying to be open to take everything in and figure out what actually seems like an interesting movie. Because then if you're excited about it and you're able to go down the path and no one says, no, that's not what we're doing, don't do that, then I just think you're going to be a better writer, right? You're like chasing this thing. It starts very quickly becoming this is my project that I want to see through, and I want to make it great in all these ways that I see the potential that it could be, and hopefully when you read it in the first place, you see the potential. And sometimes maybe you don't. And I haven't had to actually write a script like that, but I've read a script like that for an assignment and thinking like, I would love to be writing, like no matter what, I'm going to love to be writing and working on this assignment because that's the best version of the kind of work that I can be doing. Right. But I don't really, but man, it's going to be an uphill battle to try and get this thing to be good.
I don't blame people either. Obviously, a good writer who's, a professional who does this for a living, sometimes you have to take a gig like that, probably, for sure, just to keep food on the table. I'm in the stage where I still have day jobs. I still have a couple jobs here. So, if I was a full-time writer, maybe I would have said yes to some of these ones that I didn't really want to say yes to.
You've been waiting a couple months for something and, and it's something, but I think no matter what, you have to figure out how to get inside of the project, and how to be the engine for the script and, and be like making that. Cause I think if you feel like you have to drag yourself along the whole way, I mean, you will get through it, but it's just not, I just don't think it's probably gonna be very good. You might make it better, but I think you have to figure out how do I make this something that I want to write, however I do that. And then quality will come from there. Yeah.
Totally agree. And I think that's the same for writing specs, for writing spec features, original ideas. If you find yourself really losing the passion and struggling and, I just got to get it down. A lot of times for me personally, that ends up not being my best work. Yeah. But I will put a caveat on that sometimes the last script I wrote, I actually really like, and I hope it does something, but I did have to bully myself towards the end to get through it. And I think there's always some level of that, maybe of like, just sit there and type, just do it. And you'll get through it. But if it's a real slog, then maybe you need to rethink the idea if it's a spec. Okay, cool. This is something I love asking filmmakers. What are 3 films or TV shows, or you can give me 3 of each if you want, that have most influenced you as a screenwriter and a filmmaker?
I mean, definitely, I have to say early on, it was the book and the movie Jurassic Park was a huge one. That came out when I was like 6 or 7. And so, and I read the book around the same time, like the Crichton book. And so that one really got me kind of hooked into just storytelling, sci-fi, whatever you want to call that, kind of storytelling. And that was a adventure. Yeah, exactly. And just anything like that, then I was really into. And it also was interesting to have an understanding of that it was something that was adapted, to read the book also and see how different it is, and to not really understand why they changed the things they did. And then later you have more of an appreciation, understanding of why maybe those were good changes for a movie, at least. Yeah. And definitely, like I said before, Casino was a big one for me in high school. And the thing for me with that is I always saw movies as genres. Like you have an action movie or you have a drama or you have this, and then that defied any kind of genre, It was
Yeah.
just all of these things, and going from a mob movie to like relationship drama to behind the scenes of how casino work, on and on and on. And I just
Yeah. Yeah.
really appreciated how unpredictable it was, and how many things it was at once. And that was kind of a really big one for me.
Mhm.
Those are like the two that I think did it the most. I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of TV, I'm always going back to Sopranos, because
Oh yeah.
that one is just like, I think it just shows that if you have an interesting inner conflict, everything kind of falls into place, in a way. Like someone stuck between these two, two worlds or two modes of being, that can just be endlessly interesting, in the different paths you can take or go down. Because I think they probably could have made 80 more episodes of that show, and it still would have been interesting for people to watch. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's like, man, I don't know. I'm trying to think. It feels like the dawn of like prestige television, like
Mhm.
where it's like, oh, this isn't just like a TV show. This feels like a movie week to week.
Yeah.
Like this is rich stuff. Like, and HBO pioneered that. I also watched Oz back then. I was a little boy watching Oz all the time.
Yeah.
It's probably a little fucked up, but yeah, I love that era of HBO, and it was just we hadn't really seen TV like that, I don't think, up until that point. Maybe like, I mean, they had made for TV movies, but those weren't series.
Right.
But yeah, totally agree. Really innovative stuff, and just like some of the most brilliant character writing and storytelling I think we'll ever see.
I think so.
Cool though. That tracks though. And also, fun fact, I got to see Casino in a theater for the first time like 2 weeks ago, and it was amazing.
Cool.
So it's funny we're talking about it now. It's really fresh in my mind.
I've never seen it in the theater, so I've probably seen it on DVD 30 something times in high school.
Right.
But yeah.
It was cool. Our local theater, I'm going to shout them out, High Point Theater in St. Louis. They screen a lot of old films, and I fucking love it. I'm always there watching old films. But okay, cool. By the time that you broke in, by the time you won the Nicholl, how many screenplays do you think you had written?
At least 10. Yeah.
At least 10.
Probably 10 or 10 or 12, I would say, somewhere in there. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Okay. So listeners who are trying to break in and get a manager and all these things, sometimes it takes 10 or 12.
And one thing I'll say on that too, is sometimes it's like, what is breaking in even, Yeah. Because before that too, like one of the first scripts I ever wrote, which I'd rewritten a lot and refined a lot as I became a better writer. But, it had gotten me an agent who was like a partner at a huge agency, and, things like that. And the script almost sold, almost happened, but it didn't. At the end of the day, it didn't, and so it's just, I think at the end, it's really about making yourself, continue to try and make yourself the best writer you can be, and the best, tool to achieve the things you want to achieve. And the path can be pretty winding.
Yeah, definitely. I've been breaking in for 4 years now, I like to say, since I got a rep and all that. And my feature that I went deep in the Nicholl in, we're about a year into trying to finance the thing, and it's a tough go right now. And also it's just a tough time is what I'm being told. I don't know if they're trying to make me feel better, but
I think it is.
I've heard from friends too that it's a tough go right now, but so it can take a while, and I think breaking in, you're right, it looks different for literally everyone. So keep that in mind. Good thing to keep in mind. I'm always trying to protect writer egos on this show. Anyone listening, it's like, you're not alone. The shit sucks for everybody, but hopefully there comes a day where it no longer sucks. And we're all having fun. And if you're doing it, if you are writing and going through the things that we're talking about and you're still writing, then you are meant to do this. You are meant to be a writer, because anyone else would have given up a long time ago. It's very hard to get to even the point where you're submitting your finished feature screenplay to a contest.
Totally. And hopefully it is fun. Like for me, I'm really happy to get up on it. If I'm excited about something, get up on a Saturday morning and go to a coffee shop and write, I'm like looking forward to it. So
yeah, that's the best, is when you finish for the day and you hit save and close your laptop and you're like, I can't wait till tomorrow when I can get back to this. I'm so excited to write that next scene. That is the best feeling. Okay, so let's get into like your writing routine. How do you write? Everyone's routine is unique, but what's it like for you when you sit down to write? Like you just said, coffee shop. It looks like you're in an office where you might do some whiteboard stuff with writing. And then do you drink coffee, water? Do you like to have an alcoholic drink? What's it usually look like, and what time of day is it when you sit down to write? Usually,
so I'm always trying to write in the morning. And if I'm writing, like really writing on something, this is my job. If it's not my job, if it's something I'm doing on the side, then I'll try and write in the morning, like 2 hours maybe. And I like to go to a coffee shop. I used to work here in this office, and then I got where I wanted to have like a little more, I don't know, stimulus or something, be around a lot of people, but have my AirPods in where I can't really hear them,
it's funny, right? I do the same thing, but for some reason getting out of the house matters. And also you're probably the same. I go through phases. Sometimes I write at home for a couple months and then I'm like, I need to get out. Then I'm coffee shop every day.
Yeah, for sure. And if I'm writing full time, I'll be like coffee shop in the morning, and then in the afternoon go to like a place that transitions from like, coffee or something to drinks, and I'll have like a beer in the afternoon, just whatever it sort of takes to keep me like your little rewards that you can keep yourself doing and kind of tricking yourself into like, no, I'm just out having fun. I'm not really doing work,
Right.
And that keeps me having fun with it and feeling like excited about it. Yeah. And that's if I'm like writing, in trying to get pages. It's maybe sometimes a little different if it's just like the ideation, but even rereading stuff, going back through, trying to figure out. I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about like wider process,
please, anything you want to cover. Yeah,
I mean, generally, I am not big on outlining initially, which I know a lot of people are. Yeah, I feel like it kind of limits me too much, limits the creativity. And, I don't know if it's for better or for worse, because you do hear a lot of writers talk about the pain of having to cut a scene that they really love, but doesn't really fit anymore. And for me, just doing the exploration, writing pages, there's only stuff that you write pages, you're finding the character, you're starting to see, who comes off the page, who do you like, who has conflict, and kind of, the story, what you're trying to tell, but it starts to reveal itself a little bit more as you're actually writing it and kind of writing out of order and not feeling like I have to get from page 1 to page 100 yet. I'm just exploring this world, right? This world of these characters. And for me, usually if you write something, there's kind of a reason, and maybe you just have to figure out what that reason is, where a scene goes, and how a scene can be an anchor point for, for a story. If it's in the beginning, it doesn't make sense. It's at the end, it doesn't make sense. It's superfluous, but maybe somewhere in the middle, it's kind of the perfect scene that you need. And so that's a big part for me, is just doing it and then trying to go back and figure out, like, I know I'm saying something. What are we really saying? What really are the themes in this? And I think that's a really important, that's like where it all comes together, is like, I've written something. I know it's not there. I know it's just the first draft and I'm going to change a lot of things, but what is this thing really about? And if you can figure that out, then you know how to make a good story out of it. And so I come from editing, as you mentioned in the bio, I've edited a lot of movies. And I think for me, that process is sort of like creating something that then you can look at as an editor the same way that you would with maybe a documentary or something, and go, okay, what is this? What is this really saying? This like slightly shapeless mass of scenes, and how do I make it say something by taking something away and adding some there? And I just think I just like that process, because it's you're not limiting your subconscious too much. And there's probably something that's important from you that you feel like you need to say coming out one way or another.
Yeah.
And hopefully it should be part of this movie that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is I feel like when you overstructure things, it can sort of be like the sort of perfect story that doesn't necessarily have any real resonance to it, or it's just not surprising, and kind of feels like, a very good version of autopilot,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, structurally sound and kind of like emotionally vacant.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing too. You can make a movie that, structurally, maybe plot wise, there's not a ton going on, but my God, we connect with these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I see something in this person that's leading this movie that I feel so deeply, yet I don't talk about it to my friends or family. And that's enough to be like, this is my favorite movie, and it's
Totally.
There might not be a lot going on. I mean, a movie like Short Term that I talk about way too much on this podcast, Short Term 12, but one reason I talk about it so much is it is such a showcase of character, and it's done in such brilliant, subtle ways. The things that, without spoiling, the things that Brie Larson's character has been through are told in such subtle but very impactful ways, and they hit you like gut punches every time that you're like, oh, that's what's going on here, and that, oh, okay, I see. And that's what makes that movie. I mean, it's not single location, but it's close to it.
Mm-hmm.
And those movies can be very hard to keep interesting and keep fresh. And like a Short Term does it effortlessly, in my opinion. So totally agree with what you're saying. And then with theme, I'm the same way. And now more than ever, I'm trying to really focus on theme. And I bet you maybe have heard it. A lot of people listening have probably heard it. The Script Notes episode 403, that's How to Write a Movie. And it's just Craig Mazin by himself the whole time, going through how he thinks that a movie is written.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really good. And sometimes when you have an idea that's like still cooking in your brain, it's kind of fun. I do this. I listen to that episode, and then I'm walking through my new idea as I'm listening, like, oh, okay, yeah, central dramatic argument. What am I thinking there? But I love the way that he puts that, rather than just like, what's the theme? Family. It's rather, he says like a central dramatic question. So it's like, can a broken family ever actually heal? If you go into your script with that being the question at all times, and then you make a thesis, no, I do not think that they can heal.
Right.
And then the whole time, all you do is just throw objects and obstacles at that thesis. And then hopefully you end up at an antithesis or whatever, maybe you're proven wrong. Maybe you prove your theory right by the end of the movie. But no matter what, you are making a case with your film the entire time. And I love the way that he framed that. And it really got me thinking about theme in a new way, because I used to think about theme more like, yeah, this is about friendship. And it's like, what the fuck what does that mean? What are you saying about friendship? So I love just making it the form of a question. I think it does so much more for me as a writer. But
I agree.
Yeah. And so I love that you attack it like that. And then, God, he touched on one other thing that I'm losing now. But anyway, yeah, I think that's all really, really good information. And it was with outlining. So I agree as well. And you know what I've found is just, I don't know who the characters are yet when I try to outline. I can give him the name Greg, but then I'm just kind of like, now Greg does this, now Greg does that. But it's really when you get into the meat of a scene and you're typing, and your brain is kind of doing the typing for you at that point. You can almost not keep up. And then Greg does something like embarrassing, and it's like, oh, his fly was down the whole time. Or, oh, he dropped the glass of milk and it shatters.
Sure.
And then you're like, oh, okay, maybe Greg's clumsy, or maybe he's very unsure of himself. And now you have this whole new take on who Greg is. So I agree. Like and sometimes too, as I'm writing without an outline, I kind of love the feeling of, okay, that's that scene. So what happens next? If I were watching this movie, what would happen next? And I just find I do that way more effectively, just hopping right into pages.
I think I 100%. Agree. That's just, it's just like, why not? I think that's the thing too, is like you've probably been thinking about it for a while before you go. You probably have some sense of it could be this, it could be that. It's not just like I'm going to sit down and just boom. Although that would be a good exercise too. But that feeling of exploration is really fun. And like one of the movies I made, like Succubus, I was in a writer's group, and I thought I was going to be doing a short, writing a short that could maybe be made during COVID, and then realized, okay, it's going to be longer than a short. And then just kind of kept going, kept running. It was turning in pages like serialized. I didn't really know. I knew some general direction, but that was a really fun experience to be literally having people reading pages where I didn't exactly know. I knew at some point I was going to run out of ideas or would have to just keep growing with it. And that was really fun. And then it's the same thing at the end of going back, okay, well, what is this thing? Like it was a ride, but what's it about? And then hopefully you don't over-engineer it at that point and make it too much of a perfect little like watch or something.
Yeah. And Succubus was your most recent film, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Do you mind sharing a log line? What it's about?
Sure. It's a new dad who's going through a marital separation, gets on a dating app, and ends up matching with this woman where something is off. And basically, it's over the course of one night, and he kind of starts to go down the rabbit hole with this woman that is trying to, like suck him into something.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. And I am a sucker for a movie that takes place over one night. I don't know why. Same. I just love, I love movies like that. Cool. That's awesome. And then can people watch it anywhere?
Yeah, that one, I mean, you can watch anywhere, or you can rent, and it's on Tubi and Pluto and like a few other like AVOD, maybe Amazon Prime. So it's on the AVOD markets. And if you don't want the ads, then rent it on Amazon or iTunes or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. That makes it super easy to watch. Awesome. And then, I watched a trailer for Hard Miles. I thought that looked really, really fun. What year did you make that?
So we shot that 2022. Mm-hmm. Yeah, summer 2022. Then it was out 2024. Mm-hmm. So that was a journey. There's no green screen or anything. Like everything is out in the world, which was great, and probably cheaper than trying to do it. The way people would say it's cheaper, because we're a nimble little crew. Out there shooting on bikes, very challenging, but fun and different.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it looked really good. I really want to see it. I'm planning to watch it soon. One other question I'll ask while we're talking about your filmmaking. You've worked with some really awesome actors, and some who've had like really storied careers. I mean, do you have any advice for, well, first off, were you intimidated at first meeting some of these folks and knowing that you had to be the boss and direct them, and that they've been directed by some massive names in their careers? Were you nervous at all in the beginning? And then also, how did you approach it? Because there's a lot of ways to come at it. There's fake it till you make it. I'm super confident. Sure. This isn't a big deal to me. There's the letting them know a little bit. I am a little starstruck, but we're still going to make a great movie, and it's going to be great. I mean, just how did you attack that? Yeah.
So the first one for me, on my first movie, Miss Virginia, was Matthew Modine, who then became a star of Hard Miles.
Yes.
And there were many great actors on Miss Virginia. But Matthew was one where, again, sort of growing up, I probably watched Full Metal Jacket probably 10 times or something. Just one of those.
He's had an awesome
movies. Career. Yeah. And luckily he's just a very, very nice person and like generous person, but it is intimidating because we'd only talked on the phone. It's an offer. It's a situation where you offer them the role, and then you end up having a phone call, something like that, just to talk about it. And he liked the script. And so that was it. We had 2 phone calls, and then we show up on set day 2, and they called him, really early because hair and makeup and all that stuff. And Matthew basically said, no, I just want it to look like this. And so he just kind of walked onto set, and then I have to be figuring out how I'm going to direct this first scene with him, or we're going to do everything with him just sitting kind of behind me, as I'm trying to figure out the most basic part of my day. And I'm just like, God, I don't want to be doing this. I wouldn't really want to have to do it in front of any actor, but I really don't want to be doing it in front of him.
Yes.
But that was just how it started. And then we had fun. We brought a lot of humor to the role. And so it was really kind of like a yes and situation of what are his ideas? What are my ideas? And then how do we kind of bounce those off and not try and like limit his creativity. And that's kind of true of any actor. And so far in my experience, everyone that I've worked with has been just a really, ready to play, ready to do it. And there are the times when I feel like I feel like I had to say something a certain way or use certain lingo only for actors early on. You kind of realize sometimes you're just getting in your own way, and just tell people what you're thinking, and they can, they're talented and can process that their own way that they need to. And so I just approached it of trying to talk about what I really thought the movie was about and the character was about. And just hoping that it sounded good, which I think is probably a fake it till you make it approach. Going off your metric. Yeah.
God, I love hearing that. Like I said, we're trying to get my first feature finance. We have a couple cool actors attached, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. I've envisioned myself on the set, standing right in front of these couple of actors who I'm quite intimidated by. But knowing I have a job to do, and you hear a lot of that shit of like, make sure you only direct with verbs, actionable words. And things like that. And I'm like, I'm going to get so in my head thinking about, because, I've directed short films and a couple music videos and stuff. So I'm not brand new to it. And I'm like, I don't know. I've worked out the kinks where I think my style works, but then I hear some advice like that and I'm like, oh, I don't do that. Should I do that? Am I supposed to be doing that?
Right.
And I love hearing that of like, these are smart people. And also I love that you had such a collaborative aspect, because that's something I come from doing improv. And just from making shorts and stuff with, a lot of my buddies who acted in my films, realizing pretty early that your idea is not always the best, and you can get a lot of good ideas from people. And then I'm sure the more, seasoned that an actor is, the more thoughts they're going to have, and the more, even ways to like, hey, how we could get that quicker. Because you have this, three separate shots, whatever. Like I'm open to that stuff. Like, please, like if it can help our day.
Totally.
But yeah, that's interesting to hear. And I mean, such a cool experience. You've worked with some really awesome people. Okay, so then let's talk about like your writing process. You have a brand new idea. What's the first thing you do? I know you don't outline, but like, do you think of titles? Do you start a Word document and just start kind of vomiting ideas? Do you do a log line? Log line is something that comes kind of early for me, and people think I'm a psycho. But what is it usually like for you when you're like, what, that might actually be an idea I want to explore?
Usually it's just like exploring, like writing out some ideas, whatever comes. And if it is something that can be research based, if it takes place in a time period, if it takes place, Matthew Modine and I wrote a Western together. He had written the first draft, and then I, wrote from there. And so that was something that was really fun. Was like, okay, it's something he'd done also, was like, let's get into what was life like at this specific time and what was happening. And just to kind of get into the nitty gritty and see what inspires you along the way, from that. And that's a big thing for me, is letting myself try and be inspired by the potential for the project. And I think somewhere in there, it's funny. I think usually logline is something for me that comes after a first draft, and then it's thinking, okay, what is this thing actually? If it's going to be like the really good logline that's like ironic and all those things, maybe it could come before. It just kind of depends on how much time I've had in there. But it's all about just gathering, to me, like gathering and just seeing, is the stuff sticking to it, like, is it a good sticky idea.
Absolutely, yeah, and you know, like we said a minute ago, it's hard to see these things through. So knowing, like, yeah, that's something that I could see myself writing 100 pages,
Mm-hmm.
staying focused day in and day out. You know, doing 3-5 pages a day or whatever it is. Um, cool, yeah. So just a lot of idea generation and just making sure that you're ready to. And then at that point, would you move into pages?
I would, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm trying early on not to. The most important thing to me is not trying to like force an idea to being finished, especially if it's something I'm talking more about something I'm gonna be writing for myself, like spec, you know, where there maybe are no real parameters or guardrails on it.
Yeah.
Just not trying to like force something to be a finished idea, because it's so hard to pull it back from that once you do that. Once you've kind of locked a bunch of stuff in. And then I think you might only be trying to really polish, you know, make the best version of something that was never going to be the best version of it because you didn't give yourself the space. So hopefully you can have some kind of eureka moment because you've just been thinking about something in the back of your head for a couple months, or you've been reading, you know, research or whatever it is, and just go, oh, wow, this is what should happen. Like, this thing is what it needs. And then if you have that excitement, then you know this is probably right. And that's kind of the thing, is giving yourself space and time. And then if you're going to pursue the script, you're hopefully really excited about it, like really anxious to get it written and out there because you're so into it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Momentum is everything. I've been on a momentum kick lately, and I'm doing everything in my power day in and day out to not let it die. And I'm on a pretty good run. But yeah, it's a crazy thing as a writer. Writing is so hard, and it's just so labor intensive. It feels like homework, but when you can make it fun and when you're excited, it's like ride that wave. Try not to let sometimes, you know, inevitably things creep into our lives, outside distractions, things that you have to tend to. But if you can keep that momentum going, I always try to put a real focus on it. And it's hard to get back once you lose it. And it can be done. It can be done, but if you're riding that wave, keep riding it and like put in a conscious effort to ride it. Not telling you, just talking generally to everyone listening.
Of course.
But okay, cool. And then let's say that you finish a first draft. What's the first thing you do? I know you mentioned you have a writer's group. I do as well. Anyone who doesn't out there, it's a great thing to start like putting feelers out for. Invaluable source to have writers that you trust kind of be your first readers, and then you're their first reader as well, and you just exchange labor. But you have a writers group, you have a manager. I would imagine that you're not doing contests anymore. You probably priced yourself out of that. So what's the first thing you do when you finish your first draft?
I kind of try to put it away for 10 days or 2 weeks, something like that. You know, if it's a first draft, like our true first draft, put it away for a little bit, and then try and come back. And then I'm going to do my own kind of, this is what I know is not going to be working right, or this is what I know needs to be shaped, find the theme, find that stuff, and try and get it there. If I'm not writing something in a writer's group that's like, everyone knows you're seeing these new pages every 2 weeks, and people know that they're about 2 weeks old, or something maybe you hadn't finished yet. So then I'll do my own pass, and then I'll give it to a few friends who, because I don't always have time to be in the writer's group where you have to read 100 pages every week or what have you, you know? So that's always it for me, is a few trusted friends who I know always have good, smart feedback, and whose tastes I know I like. So it's not like, you know, going to be out from left field. And then just see what do I have? What are the reactions? And then try and think of what would be my way of working through their notes that I agree with, to try and get it closer to what I would hope that the movie could be, like the vision of the movie. And then, you know, when I'm feeling good about it, I would probably then start thinking maybe I'd ask my manager to read something like that.
Yeah, I think, it's kind of unspoken etiquette to get your script in a pretty good place before you send it to the rep, who has a lot of reading to do, period. So do them that service. But then you said something else that again I just want to reiterate for people listening. When you're taking notes from friends and you trust their judgment, but not every note is something you agree with. So that's okay. Take what you agree with. If you don't agree with the note, I don't full on just get rid of it, but I do I leave it on the document, and then maybe I'll revisit it one day, maybe because sometimes a note takes a month to sink in, and then you're like, oh shit, you know what? They're probably right, and I did not see that a month ago. But then you implement those notes, and I think for me too, when 2 or more people repeat a note, or 3 for sure. Even if you don't agree with it, sometimes you got to take that note when it's like, 3 people agree. It's like, all right, shit, they're right. And I'm wrong. And that's just what it is.
Like something's not translating, and I think that's the way to look at it too, is something's getting in the way of what you're trying to say. If it's like bumping with everyone. Yeah.
Yep. Totally. Yeah. So a little tweak here and there. And I think you can iron that out. We're nearing the end here. I did want to ask, what are some hobbies outside of screenwriting that, help keep you sane?
Yeah, I've been trying to just go on walks and hikes, and I've been trying to exercise, which is something I never really had done. I mean, I would go walk around, but trying to, and then things even like going out in the yard and, repotting some plants, or just something that feels like, okay, I'm doing something that I can accomplish in a couple hours or an hour or 20 minutes, I think is really important, because there's so many steps involved in this process. Even when you have a finished script, then, you have a first draft, and you have to have notes, and then you have to this and you have that, and then you have to sell it, or then you have to make it. And there's just, it's hard to say when something's done. And so I think doing things that can be done and not putting off every aspect of your life, like your health, until after a certain career milestone, I think is a good thing to finally get to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love how you laid that out, that it's nice to finish a task that can be finished. Because with a script, until you shoot the scene and wrap for that day, it can be changed, and it might be changed. It's kind of, you're in this perpetual state of not being done with the thing that you feel done with, but you're not.
Right.
So I love that. I think that's a really cool way to look at it. And to wrap up, we have reached the end, Daniel, and I really appreciate you being here.
It was fun.
What are a few words of, hang on, let me start that over. What are a few words of advice that you would give to your fellow screenwriters out there, especially to those just getting started?
I think the hardest thing is just getting started, and every day or the first time. And I think just, you get used to it after you've done it many, many times of thinking like, okay, I don't have to know all the answers right now. I'm just going to play around with this and have fun and see what comes out. And I think writing every day, I know everyone's different. I think writing in the morning is so crucial for me, because all the things of the day haven't bogged me down and cluttered my mind and gotten me, feeling like I'm behind or distracted or can't do it, and just putting it first, even if it's 45 minutes in the morning or something, that's a big way to go. But I just think just being consistent and getting started, that's like the hardest thing. And then exciting yourself with what you write, I think is huge.
Yeah, man, that's great. I know the consistency of it for sure. In the morning, I don't write in the morning enough. I always wait till early afternoon. I probably should stop, because your brain is so fresh in the morning too.
Yeah,
there's just zero. Well, I guess there could be exhaustion if you're just tired from the day before. But for me, I'm the freshest I'm going to be in the morning. I think most of us are. But all right, that's awesome, dude. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. I really appreciate it. It's great to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
I've been lurking and following for years. So I'm excited.
Good luck. I was just gonna say good luck on the film you've got going. I'm excited for you on that. And it takes time, but again, it's just continuing pushing. So
yeah, thank you so much, dude. I appreciate that.
The Social Screenwriters Podcast.